In a world where change is the only constant, Mo Shamil stands at the forefront, guiding title professionals to not just grow their businesses, but to master the art of innovation. With every episode, you're handed the keys to unlock unparalleled growth and stay ahead of the curve. Get ready for a transformative journey.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we unpack complex industry shifts and empower you, our title professional listeners, with the clarity to stay not just compliant, but really ahead of the curve. I'm Zina.
And I'm Crosby. And today's topic, well, it's absolutely critical for your business, FinCEN. We're going to talk about what it is, why it's so laser focused on real estate now, and how its new nationwide rule is really about to reshape how we handle those all-cash closings.
Yeah, especially the ones involving LLCs and trusts, right?
Exactly.
We're talking about a permanent nationwide rule. It kicks in December 1st, 2025. So if you're a title agent listening right now, this is your essential primer. We're going to walk you through the whole story, from the GTOs.
The geographic targeting orders, yeah.
Right, those GTOs many of you dealt with, all the way up to this new permanent mandate. We really want to make sure you feel ready.
Yeah, our mission today is pretty straightforward. Simplify this complex subject. Turn these dense regulations into clear, actionable insights you can actually use in your day-to-day.
Mm-hmm.
Because the need for every title agent to get a handle on this, it's urgent.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's start with the absolute basics. We hear the name FinCEN thrown around, but for anyone who's maybe still a bit fuzzy on it, what is FinCEN really, and why should title agents care?
Sure. So FinCEN stands for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It's a key bureau within the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Been around since 1990.
Okay.
And its core mission is pretty serious. Safeguard the U.S. financial system from illicit use, combat money laundering, and ultimately promote national security. They do this by collecting and analyzing massive amounts of financial intelligence.
So they're like the financial intelligence hub for the country.
Exactly. Think of them that way. They're the main enforcers of the Bank Secrecy Act, the BSA, which is really the foundation of our anti-money laundering laws here in the U.S. They get data from banks, other financial institutions, sift through it, and then share that intelligence with law enforcement to, follow the dirty money.
Okay. I get the bank connection, tracking wire transfers and things like that. But why real estate? Why is this financial intelligence unit suddenly so interested in, dirt, bricks, and mortar?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, real estate has some unique characteristics that make it, frankly, a prime target for money launderers, often more so than just using banks.
How so?
Well, think about it. Properties are high-value assets. Plus, it's relatively easy for criminals to hide who really owns the property behind anonymous shell companies or complex trusts. And the big one, all cash deals.
Right, no lender involved.
Exactly. So you bypass the typical bank oversight, the due diligence that would normally happen with a mortgage. That flags suspicious funds. FinCEN's own director has said pretty explicitly that illicit actors are exploiting the U.S. residential real estate market.
Exploiting it how?
To launder and hide proceeds from serious crimes, often with complete anonymity. And the kicker is, law-abiding Americans end up bearing the cost through inflated housing prices. It's not just about financial crime. FinCEN sees it as a national security issue and an economic integrity issue, too.
Wow, so it goes way beyond just stopping bad guys. It actually impacts housing affordability and market stability for everyone. That really broadens the scope, doesn't it?
It really does. And consider this statistic. Something like 25% of residential deals nationwide are all cash.
A quarter. That's huge.
It is. And in some hot markets, it's been as high as 50%. Now, obviously, most of those are legitimate transactions. But that lack of lender due diligence, it creates a massive vulnerability.
Because someone can just walk in with cash, hide behind an LLC.
Precisely. They obscure their identity. They obscure the source of the money. And what's fascinating here, I think, is how these seemingly simple local property deals can actually become a major weak point for our entire national financial system. This growing concern, this vulnerability, is what led FinCEN to create a specific tool.
Which brings us to the GTOs.
Exactly. Geographic targeting orders.
GTOs. Okay, many title agents, especially in big cities, got very familiar with these over the last few years. But for others, it might still be a bit abstract. So what exactly were GTOs, and how did they first hit the title industry?
Right. So GTOs are temporary orders.
Yeah.
FinCEN issues them under the Bank Secrecy Act. They're basically designed to impose extra record keeping or reporting on businesses, but only within a specific geographic area, specific county or city, for instance.
Like a surgical tool.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. FinCEN uses them to gather data on transactions they think are high risk for money laundering. And the real estate GTO program actually started almost a decade ago now, back in January 2016.
10 years. Okay. And it started small, right? Just Manhattan and Miami.
That's right. Initially, it was a pilot focused just on high-end residential cash purchases over $1 million made by shell companies in those two areas.
But it didn't stay small.
No, not at all. Once FinCEN saw the kind of valuable data they were getting, they expanded the GTOs pretty rapidly. As of, say, early 2025, they covered certain counties in at least 12 states, plus Washington, D.C. We're talking major metros. L.A., San Francisco Bay Area, Chicago, Boston, Seattle, the whole DMV area.
And they lowered the price tag too, didn't they?
Significantly. The dollar threshold came way down. In most of those areas, it's currently $300,000.
Wow. From over $1 million down to $300K.
Yeah. And there's even a $50,000 exception in Baltimore because of some specific risks they saw there.
So, okay, these GTOs expanded, the threshold dropped, pulling in way more deals. What did title agents actually have to do when one of these GTOs was active in their area? What was the practical impact?
Okay, so under a GTO, title insurance companies and their agents that were specifically named as covered businesses had a clear task. They had to identify the beneficial owners of the company buying the property.
Beneficial owners meaning?
Meaning any individual who owned 25% or more of the entity, like the actual person behind the LLC.
Okay.
And if nobody hit that 25% mark, they usually had to report at least one person who had significant control over the entity. Then they had to report specific details about those individuals and the transaction to FinCEN, usually within 30 days of closing.
And did they need proof of ID?
Yes, absolutely. They had to get a copy of a valid government-issued ID, driver's license, passport, something like that for each beneficial owner they identified.
How did title companies manage that? Was it a huge disruption or did the industry sort of figure it out?
Well, there was definitely a learning curve at first, no doubt about it. Yeah. But the industry adapted pretty well, actually. Title companies often built it into their existing processes. ALTA, the American Land Title Association, even created an optional form to help collect the info.
Ah, the ALTA form.
Yeah. And they had also coordinate with the buyer's attorneys to get the necessary details. The reporting itself was done through FinCEN's secure e-filing system. It wasn't public information. And it's important to remember, the GTOs were never meant to stop closings.
Just gather data.
Exactly. It was purely an intelligence gathering exercise for FinCEN.
And did that intelligence pay off? Did they find anything useful?
Extremely useful, according to FinCEN. They shared one really significant finding publicly. About 30%, nearly one-third of the all-cash purchases reported under the GTOs involved a buyer or a beneficial owner who was already linked to previous suspicious activity reports.
SARS from banks.
Right, SARS followed by banks or other financial institutions. So almost a third of these anonymous cash buyers in high-risk areas were already on law enforcement's radar in some other financial context.
That is striking. It really shows the connection, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It strongly indicated how much illicit money was potentially flowing through real estate, hidden behind these entities. And, non-compliance wasn't taken lightly. The penalties were serious.
Like what?
For willful violations, meaning you knew about the GTO and deliberately didn't comply or filed false info, you could face fines up to $250,000 and potentially 5 years in prison.
Wow.
And even more if it was connected to another crime. Even unintentional mistakes could lead to civil penalties. So there was definitely a strong incentive to get it right.
Definitely a powerful incentive. Okay, so the GTOs proved their value, they gathered crucial intelligence, but they were always temporary, targeted, like a pilot program almost.
Essentially, yes.
Which leads us right to the main event, this new nationwide rule. What's coming next that affects everyone, no matter where you are?
This is the big one. FinCEN is taking everything they learned from the GTOs and making it permanent and nationwide. The entire GTO program is set to be replaced by this single permanent rule, effective December 1st, 2025.
December 1st, 2025. Okay, everyone listening, circle that date. And nationwide means literally everywhere. No more specific counties, no more price thresholds, even in smaller towns or for lower value properties.
Exactly. No geographic limits at all. It applies across all L states, territories, even tribal lands. And critically, no minimum price threshold. None whatsoever. A $50,000 cash deal by an LLC is covered just like a $5 million one. The thinking is, Even lower value properties can be used to stash dirty money.
Okay, so what kinds of transactions are covered?
It's any non-finance purchase, so cash or equivalent of residential real estate, when the buyer is a legal entity or a trust.
And how broad is residential real estate?
Pretty broad. It's not just single-family homes. It includes buildings with 1 to 4 family units, condos, co-ops, apartment buildings, even vacant land if it's zoned or intended for 1 to 4 unit residential construction. Oh, and mixed-use properties, too, if they have a residential component.
Wow, okay. That covers a huge number of deals that were never touched by GTOs before. So the big question, who is actually responsible for filing this report? Who's on the hook?
FinCEN set up what they call a cascade approach. The default responsibility falls on the person listed as the closing or settlement agent on the closing disclosure form or similar settlement statement. Usually that's the title agent or settlement company coordinating the closing.
So the title agent is the default reporter.
Correct. However, the rule specifically allows the parties involved in the closing to agree in writing that someone else will file the report.
Oh, okay. So you could designate, say, the buyer's attorney.
Potentially, yes. Or maybe a specialized compliance firm, particularly for complex deals. But there has to be a clear written agreement assigning that responsibility. If there's no agreement, the settlement agent on the forms is the one required to file. So in many, many cases, it's going to be the title agent.
Got it. And what information actually goes into this new report? Is it the same as the GTOs or is it more involved?
It's definitely comprehensive. It builds on the GTO requirements, but aligns more closely now with the Corporate Transparency Act definitions. So you need the identity of the reporting person, of course, info on the legal entity or trust buying the property name, EIN if they have one.
And the beneficial owners.
Yes, the beneficial owners. And this is key. It uses the CTA definition. So any individual who directly or indirectly owns or controls 25% or more of the ownership interests, or anyone who exercises substantial control over the entity.
Substantial control. That can be tricky.
It can be. It's not just ownership percentage. It could be a senior officer, someone with appointment removal authority, an important decision maker. For trusts, it's specific roles.
Yeah.
Trustees, maybe the settlor if they retain certain rights, certain beneficiaries.
And for each of these individuals?
You need their full name, date of birth, current residential address, an identifying number from an acceptable ID document like a passport or driver's license number, and an image of that document. And you also need their citizenship.
Okay, that's a lot of personal data. What else is in the report?
You also need info on anyone acting as a representative for the purchaser, like an attorney, signing documents for the LLC, information about the seller, details about the property itself, the total purchase price, and interestingly, specifics about how the payment was made, wires, cashier's checks, etc.
Okay, that is definitely a significant data collection effort. What's the deadline for getting this report filed after closing?
It has to be filed electronically with FinCEN within 30 calendar days of the closing date.
30 days. Okay.
Although there's a slight nuance. It's actually 30 days or by the 15th day of the month following the closing month, whichever's later. That gives a little buffer for those end-of-month rushes.
Right. Now, here's the scenario every title agent is probably thinking about. What happens if the buyer or their representative just refuses to provide this beneficial ownership information? Can you still close?
This is probably the single most critical operational change from the GTOs. The answer is clear. Incomplete reports will not be accepted by FinCEN. If a buyer refuses to provide the required information, the title agent cannot simply file an incomplete report and close the deal. There's no mechanism for that.
So if the info isn't provided, you can't close.
Not without violating the rule and exposing yourself to those penalties we discussed. This puts the onus squarely on the settlement agent, likely the title agent, to get this information before the closing can occur.
That's going to require some potentially difficult conversations with clients, isn't it?
Absolutely. It means integrating this information request right at the beginning of the process. When you open escrow, you'll need clear communication. Maybe something like, as part of federal regulations required for this type of transaction, we need to collect and report information about the beneficial owners of your company to the U.S. Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. We need this information before we can proceed to closing and issue title insurance.
Make it clear it's a legal requirement, not just the title company being nosy.
Precisely. It's a mandatory step for this specific type of transaction now. But it's also important to reassure clients and for agents to understand what this rule doesn't do.
Okay.
FinCEN isn't trying to turn title agents into banks. You are not required to implement a full-blown anti-money laundering AML program like a bank has. You're not required to file general suspicious activity reports or SARs based on hunches. This is a very specific transaction-based reporting requirement for these non-financed entity trust purchases.
That's a really important clarification. It's a specific report, not a general policing duty.
Exactly. And this whole conversation about beneficial ownership naturally leads us to another big topic that's been buzzing around.
The Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA.
Right. The CTA.
Yeah, this was supposed to be this landmark law creating a huge national database of beneficial owners for almost every company formed or registered in the U.S. The idea, I think, was that this database would help law enforcement and presumably help FinCEN with things like this real estate rule, right? Give them a registry to check against.
That was certainly part of the plan. The CTA and its Beneficial Ownership Information, or BOI, database were meant to pull back the curtain on anonymous shell companies across the board. It would, in theory, complement FinCEN's efforts in specific sectors like real estate.
But there was a pretty major development earlier this year, a real curveball related to the CTA's rollout, wasn't there?
A very significant curveball, yes. On March 22, 2025, FinCEN issued what's called an interim final rule. And what it did was essentially pause or exempt the enforcement of the CTA's BOI reporting requirements specifically for domestic U.S. companies.
So regular U.S. LLCs and corporations suddenly didn't have to file their owner info into that big database anymore.
That's the current situation, yes. As it stands now, based on that rule, only foreign companies that register to do business here in the U.S. still have to file those BOI reports directly with FinCEN under the CTA. Domestic companies are currently off the hook for that specific CTA filing.
Okay, this sounds potentially confusing. If domestic companies don't have to report their owners under the CTA anymore, what does that mean for title agents trying to comply with this new nationwide real estate reporting rule? Does the CTA pause affect the real estate rule?
This is the absolute crucial point to understand. No, the CTA pause for domestic companies does not affect the separate requirements of the new nationwide real estate reporting rule.
Okay, say that again.
Even though a domestic LLC might not have to file its beneficial owner information directly with FinCEN under the CTA right now, if that same LLC buys residential property with cash, the title agent involved in that deal still has to collect all that beneficial owner information and report it to FinCEN under the real estate rule.
So two separate reporting streams, essentially.
Exactly. You cannot rely on the existence or non-existence of a CTA filing to satisfy your obligations under the real estate rule. Title agents must collect the beneficial owner information directly from the buyer for every covered real estate transaction. You can't just look it up in a central database, especially since domestic companies aren't required to be in it currently.
That really underlines how focused FinCEN is on getting this specific real estate transaction data, doesn't it? Even with the wider CTA issues.
It absolutely does. It shows their determination to track beneficial ownership in property deals is unwavering. The burden of collecting that owner info for your covered real estate transactions remains squarely on your shoulders as the settlement agent. And remember, the info you collect and report under the real estate rule is confidential. It's not public.
Okay, that's crystal clear. The CTA pause doesn't change your job under the new real estate rule starting December 1st. So let's talk consequences. With all this responsibility, what happens if a title agent or their company doesn't comply? If they miss reports, file incomplete ones, what are the real risks?
The risks are significant, frankly. We're talking about both civil and criminal penalties. And these aren't just slaps on the wrist.
How serious are we talking?
For willful violations, meaning you knowingly failed to file or you knowingly provided false or incomplete information, the potential penalties are steep. Fines can go up to $250,000.
Per violation?
The statute allows for significant penalties, and there's potential prison time up to 5 years. If the violation happens while violating another U.S. law or is part of a pattern of illegal activity involving more than $100,000 in a year, those penalties can double up to $500,000 in fines and 10 years in prison.
Wow, that's serious. What about just mistakes? Unintentional errors?
Even unintentional violations can result in civil penalties, potentially thousands of dollars per violation. FinCEN has enforcement discretion, of course, but the potential liability is definitely there.
And this isn't just theoretical risk for the company overall, is it? Can individual employees, like the closing agent who handled the file, be held responsible too?
Yes. The law allows for individual employees to be held personally liable for willful violations. If someone knowingly falsifies a report or deliberately ignores the requirements, they could face those criminal penalties themselves, not just the company.
Okay, that really drives home the importance of getting this right. So, given these pretty severe consequences, what are the absolute best practices for title agents? How can they avoid these liabilities and make sure they are fully prepared come December 1st, 2025?
It really comes down to being proactive and embedding this into your regular workflow. Don't treat it as some separate annoying task. Make it part of the process.
So, what are the concrete steps?
Okay, first, understand the rule. Really understand it. Read the final rule when it's fully published. Use the resources from ALTA. Talk to your underwriters. They are all working hard to provide guidance. Don't guess.
Know the requirements cold.
Exactly. Second, train your staff. Everyone involved in closings processors, closers, even post-closing folks needs to know what's required, how to spot a transaction that falls under the rule, and importantly, how to talk to clients about it professionally.
Get everyone on the same page.
Third, update your checklists and workflows. This is critical. Integrate the beneficial ownership information collection and the ID verification right into your standard procedures, right from the start when you open escrow. Don't wait until the week before closing to ask for this stuff.
Build it in from day one. Makes sense.
Fourth, secure document collection and storage. You're going to be collecting copies of driver's licenses, passports, highly sensitive personal data. You need secure methods for collecting it and storing it safely for the required 5 years after filing. Think about data privacy and security protocols.
Good point. And finally,
Get certifications. Have the buyer or their authorized representative sign a certification confirming that the beneficial ownership information they've provided is accurate and complete to the best of their knowledge. While you still need to file what they give you, having that certification provides a basis for relying on the information provided. It adds a layer of diligence.
that seems like a smart step for liability protection.
It is.
Right.
Imagine an office that just ignores this. They don't train staff. They don't update their intake forms. Come December 1st, suddenly every cash deal involving an LLC walks in the door and they're scrambling. They can't get the info. Closings get delayed or canceled. Clients are furious.
They're exposed to those huge penalties.
Exactly. It could be crippling for a business.
Yeah.
So compliance here isn't just about ticking a box or avoiding a fine. It's fundamentally about protecting the integrity of the real estate market, yes, but also about protecting your own business, your reputation, and your ability to operate smoothly. It's recognizing that title professionals are now, truly, a vital line of defense.
It really elevates the role, doesn't it? Okay, let's try to boil this all down. Let's summarize the absolute core takeaways for everyone listening today.
Good idea.
First, FinCEN is serious about real estate. Their focus is expanding beyond banks, and this rule makes that crystal clear. The regulatory environment for property transactions is changing permanently.
Absolutely. Point one.
Second, if you are closing a cash deal non-financed for residential property and the buyer is an entity like an LLC or a trust, you, the settlement agent, are now on the hook to identify and report the ultimate beneficial owners. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Key point. It's mandatory reporting.
Third, the date to remember, December 1st, 2025. That's when this new nationwide rule kicks in, replacing the old GTO system entirely. You need to have your processes ready before then.
Don't wait until November 2025.
Definitely not. And finally, the actionable advice. Start preparing now. Update your procedures, train your teams, figure out how you're going to securely collect and store this information, and practice how you'll explain it to clients. Don't let this catch you flat-footed.
Preparation is everything here.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. When you're collecting this information, think about it this way. You're not just filling out another government form. By identifying who truly owns that property, you are actively participating in safeguarding the U.S. real estate market from illicit actors, from global financial crime. You're becoming a crucial guardian of the system. How does that shift your perspective on this new task, seeing yourself as part of that frontline defense?
It adds real weight to the process, doesn't it?
It really does. Well, thanks for joining us on this really essential deep dive into FinCEN and the new real estate rules. We sincerely hope this helped you feel more informed and prepared for what's coming down the pike.
And if you learned something valuable today, maybe something that sparked an idea or clarified a concern, please do us a small favor. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. And maybe leave us a review. It genuinely helps other title professionals find the show and stay up to date.
We really appreciate it. We'll be back next week with more insights designed to help you lead, evolve, automate, and pioneer. That's the LEAP way. Until then, I'm Zina.
And I'm Crosby. Stay safe out there, stay smart, and keep closing with confidence.
In a world where change is the only constant, Mohs Shamil stands at the forefront, guiding title professionals to not just grow their businesses, but to master the art of innovation. With every episode, you're handed the keys to unlock unparalleled growth and stay ahead of the curve. Get ready for a transformative journey